Welcome to the Uncommon Living podcast, where we host dialogues on the science, experience, and practical wisdom that builds physiological and psychological resilience. Our episode today is a triple header. We present 3 case studies in sex hormones and testosterone in particular, and talk about 2 women and 1 man who have boosted their testosterone levels to unheard of heights after adopting a regular practice of cold plunge therapy. Pamela Butler is a woman who suffered surgical menopause when both her ovaries and her uterus were removed. Naturally, her testosterone levels dropped, and her clinician put her on hormone replacement therapy so that she could maintain a high quality of life. But when Pamela Butler discovered cold plunge therapy and added that to her routine, her lab showed a 10x boost in total testosterone levels, and her estradiol went up by several multiples. Her clinician naturally said we should discontinue the testosterone replacement therapy. And as far as I know, Pamela doesn't need it anymore. This is her story about how cold plunge therapy positioned her to discontinue her medication.
Pam, you are the most interesting thing that has happened in terms of the science and the data in many months. You are the first woman to send me lab reports of her testosterone before she started doing ice baths and exercise, and then after she started doing ice baths and exercise. And your testosterone levels show more than a 10x increase from 14 nanograms per deciliter to 168 nanograms per deciliter. Will you tell us about that?
So honestly, you're the reason why I track it. I have been with an endocrinologist for several years. I had a full hysterectomy almost 20 years ago, about 18 years ago, which put me into surgical menopause at the time. And I went on bioidentical hormone creams. Fast forward, I then started with that was with a functional medicine doctor. And then I went with the endocrinologist, and she's been tracking, she does my blood work, very frequently. I'm very sensitive to it. It's a double-edged sword from everything that you read about hormone replacement therapy and whatnot, the pros and the cons. I have tried getting off of it, and it has not served me well. So I stay on a very, very low dosage of it just to help me maintain myself and my sanity. So I started tracking it. I did my blood work last October 2023, and that showed the testosterone level at 14. And doing the cold therapy, I started that in December 2023. I had been doing the infrared sauna. I have an infrared sauna at my house, but I had kind of, been reading a little bit about cold therapy, and I thought, I hate the cold. I live in Florida. It's really not something that's my jam, but I had been seeing a lot of it on social media. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to take, the cold plunge and actually start doing it. And I started it in early December and did it, I think it was like 40 days in a row. And then I had to go do a retreat. But those 40 days was super impactful, powerful. And my body never felt better. Everything feels amazing, like so good.
You were saying that you had a hysterectomy. Were they able to leave your ovaries intact at the time?
So at the time they did, but then subsequently after that, they took them out. So it's, in essence, a complete hysterectomy.
And has anyone explained to you, if without ovaries, where does the testosterone in your body come from?
Well, I don't think you can produce it, right? Because
That's
And
my
like and all of
understanding,
your
is
hormones,
that
right? Like all
is
of your
that you
hormones.
don't, right?
Right.
But I'm going to have to go back and check, because if you've gone from 14 nanograms per deciliter to 168 nanograms per deciliter, and and you haven't changed your hormone replacement therapy dose, then I'm going, where is the testosterone
Right.
coming from?
Right.
It's
I
quite a
know.
mystery.
I know. That's why I reached out to you, because I had been reading the research that you've been doing and showing in men and the increase in testosterone. So I just had in the back of my own mind, I'm going to check that the next time I do my hormone panel. And I had done it last week, and I was like, wow. And the only thing that was different was the cold therapy. That was it. And now my endocrinologist, she messaged me and she like, stop the testosterone now.
But Pam, sometimes women will write to me and they'll say, well, I don't want to do ice baths because I don't want all that testosterone. Here you are, without changing your dose, your testosterone has leapt. And it's possible because testosterone is converted into estrogen and other things. Your body processes testosterone. It's possible that your body has changed its own testosterone set point by leaving testosterone in your bloodstream instead of reprocessing it into other things. But you also checked your estrogen, which was a really good thing because you went from 20 to 32. It's not that your super high level of testosterone has also increased your estrogen. It's just gone up a little bit. And some women would say, but I don't want to grow a beard. I mean, look at you. You're very feminine. You're beautiful. You're aging well. You're probably proud of yourself. And do you have any misgivings about having a testosterone level that high?
No, not at all. And it's funny you say that, because, and I didn't make the connection. I don't know if it's true or not, but my hairdresser, the last time I was there, she's like, your hair's so thick. Like, it feels different. What are you doing different? And I just thought maybe it's the collagen I'm taking or something. But no, I don't feel masculine. I feel fit. I feel strong. I can hit the golf ball over 220 when I drive the golf ball. I mean, I hit further than a lot of women my age. I don't even want to make age a factor, but it is a reality. I just have a lot of body awareness. And I think a lot of that stems from yoga. And I no, I don't have a beard. I'm not shaving. There's nothing, that I would say is frightening or discouraging for me at this point. Now I am stopping my cream. So it'll be interesting, in another couple of months to see what happens, how I feel, what happens to my levels. Whatever. I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing. With the sauna and the cold, the heat and the cold, and all the other cool biohacking things that I've been learning about.
The men who report that they pre-cooled their exercise, they've done ice bath, they followed up with exercise. The men who report that they've seen a big testosterone boost all tell me that they feel fantastic. Do you feel fantastic?
I do. I still have a little bit, and it's probably maybe the Hashimoto's. I do get a little fatigued. I get a little bit tired in the afternoons. But I do feel fantastic. I mentally, I'm so much clearer, joyful, focused. I don't have the anxiety that I've had in the past. I don't have the depression that I've had in the past. I do find that getting in that cold water, it kind of melts everything away.
Jeff Daubney is a friend and a wellness coach who has a bunch of high-end clients who have sacrificed their health in the interest of their business. One client in particular, working with him, made dietary changes and started a daily practice of cold plunge therapy, followed by exercise. And that resulted in the fastest testosterone ramp I've ever seen. In 1 month, Daubney's client tripled his total testosterone levels. And Daubney attributes this primarily to his cold plunge practice and the rebounding exercises that he did afterwards.
Most really high performers I dealt with do have a natural proclivity to, or a natural predisposition to having high testosterone when you feed them the right diet, exercise routine, sleep routine, and, cold and sauna. So what we did very simply is I designed a modified carnivore diet, a high saturated fat diet, also with a fair amount of mono unsaturated fats, lots of avocado, olive oil, fermented vegetables, but solid, let's say 800 to 1,000 grams of good protein, grass-fed beef every day, 4 eggs every day. And because he is cut from that cloth of being a high cognitive performer, his physicality was down. He was down to 369 nanograms per deciliter. 28 days later, and I have all the testing, 919 total and 20 on the free testosterone. Now, other markers went up. Let's just be honest. His ApoB went from 111 to 149, but his homocysteine went from 11 to 8. His insulin went from 12 down to, I forgot exactly, 8.5, something like that. Glucose down under 80 at 79 or 77. Everything marked up good related to everything but ApoB. So now we pull some of the saturated fat out. We replace the equal amount of grams with fish and chicken, but we keep pumping him with the avocado and everything, looking to try to keep the testosterone at least above 750, but get that ApoB down under 100, trending towards, say, 60. That's where we really want to be for longevity while trying to keep the testosterone up. So that's what I did. I created a diet and exercise program for him. To be honest, Thomas, the exercise program is really tertiary. It's way behind the ice bathing every day.
You never mentioned the ice bath in that summary. What did you do for ice baths?
We didn't miss a day. We hit an ice. So we create this. We have everything like you do in terms of being in Phoenix and doing ice bathing outdoors. It's warm. We don't have to worry about hypothermia, ischemia. Most of that stuff isn't an issue here. Maybe ischemia a little bit more, but not with this client. So we go long. I don't advertise this through my company, but he's been doing ice baths between 11 and 22 minutes every day.
What temp?
Straight up 32. Sometimes 30 because we put salt in it.
Yep. That's cold. And the salt can be frostbite. So be careful now.
This unique client also has kind of a high BMI. He's got a fair amount of stored energy on his body, especially around the midsection, and into the upper chest and shoulders, even the neck. But we lost 22 pounds in that time too, and the dude has shrank. His face, his neck, his shoulders, even his lower midsection is shrinking. And he needed to take 1 week off. He went to Summit by Sea and, partied a little bit, but now we're back at it again. He, like me, is really resistant to the ice bathing. So here's what I found. And when I say resistant, he enjoys being in there long, but also it's in Fahrenheit, it's 91, 92 degrees every time we do an ice bath. So when we're right in the sun when we're ice bathing. So we get out of that ice bath. We don't even dry off. All we do is put a yoga mat on the ground and start doing rebounding, jump roping. Let's say, for instance, he's at 55 when he gets out, feet per minute. In 2 minutes, he'll be up around 160. I'll be up higher because I'm a little bit more, I'm in better shape. So I'll get up to 180 in the same time he gets up to 160. But the mind-blowing part is the calorie burn. He'll do that for 12 to 20 minutes, but he'll keep burning calories for 40, 45 minutes. His heart rate, as long as he doesn't sit down and do breath work, if he stays up just moving, he's in 140, 150, 160 even.
How's he sleeping?
Pretty good. This week, we've had 2 98% recoveries and a 96 on his side. HRV is a little bit skeptical, or a little bit suspect in that he's a heavy tobacco smoker. I don't smoke. My HRV keeps hitting 95, 100, 106. But I sleep longer duration than he does as well. He sleeps like 7.5 hours. But again, I have his permission to share everything with you as well.
That's fantastic. Never mind his ApoB or his ApoB. I can't even say it.
ApoB.
Never mind that. Did you measure his triglycerides and HDL?
Yep, always. And VLDL, all of it. HDL, believe it or not, from test 1 to test 2 went up 1 point, went from 39 to 40.
Good. What about triglyceride levels?
They went up a little bit during the carnivore phase. So now we're on the Nicoyan diet, which again is just, these are parameters that we created. We switched the fasting period. So now he fasts at night instead of in the morning, a little bit more energy to create skeletal muscle and give him that metabolic burn. You know, it's a 90-day program he hired me for, so it's pretty blocked out.
So let's recap. This is 28 days. And in the metabolic measures in the blood that are associated with cardiovascular health, we don't expect to see dramatic changes. At least I'm not accustomed to seeing dramatic changes. But then again, I'm not accustomed to seeing a 2.5 times increase in total testosterone levels in 28 days either, Jeff. That's the fastest ramp ever.
I've never seen it. I've never seen it before in my life. I've been testing my testosterone for 10 years now, 11, I guess. Even Jay Campbell, who's in that space, he's like, that's a fast ramp up. I haven't really seen that happen before.
How's your client feeling?
Fantastic. You can imagine the amount, losing 22 pounds, the amount of attention he's getting. He's at an age where falling in love with somebody and creating a family is high on his list. You know, the money part is completely figured out, never need to worry or even think of that again. So now it's about getting him. I've never seen anybody make a change like this. We call it turning on the magnet of alignment, when your heart and brain start to resonate and get coherent together. He's not with me right now because, needless to say, he's getting a lot of attention from women that he's not accustomed to when he was 236 pounds. And now he's about, as of today, I think he's in the neighborhood of 210, 209. So
I'm 5 pounds heavier than him right now. And I was a lot fatter than 236 when I finally got my act together and decided to get serious about my health. So he's got plenty of time.
Yep.
Not everybody, though, can come down to Mexico and live with you for a month. What is he going to do when he sort of re-enters his normal life and finds the right woman to start a family with?
So he hired me for 90 days, but he was really clear. He's like, listen, I'm going to pay you whatever you need to make sure we keep this going after the 90 days. It's convenient that we're neighbors and we're walking distance. I live in a beautiful part of Tulum. He lives right around the corner. But I document literally every rep. Everything we do is documented. So he's got a course of navigation to follow. But what I do, I just signed another client as well, an actor. And same thing, you got me full-time text. So if you need some questions answered, I'm on text. If I'm not asleep, I'm happy to help.
Yep.
But he's talked about, keeping the workouts going, keeping the ice bathing going. I'm not joking when I tell you in that first 28 days, he had over 300 minutes in the ice bath in that first month. But it's more. It's probably closer to 400 minutes. And now that it's working, he's now really starting. Like yesterday, did 22 minutes in the ice bath, jumped out, did his rebounding, and burned almost 600 calories in 40 minutes after the ice bath.
His metabolic rate at night will probably compensate for that high level of burn. Now, it's great that his metabolism is capable of that output. He's got so much thermogenesis going on that his mitochondria are all fired up. But when he goes to sleep at night, his core body temperature is probably going to come down. It could be a degree or 2 Fahrenheit. His metabolic rate will probably slow down to compensate for everything that he did during the day. After the first, I think you said he lost 20 pounds. The ice isn't really what's going to promote his weight loss. I mean, Gary Brecka, he kind of exaggerates it. When you take Gary out of context and Gary says, well, there is nothing that will promote fat burning. It's true for just that period. You can get one of these continuous keto monitors and it'll show you how you are spiking caloric burn and how you are spiking fat burn. But what Gary was never quoted saying is that your body compensates later on in your 24-hour cycle. It's attempting to conserve that energy, thinking, I don't know, maybe you're going to do this again tomorrow. He's remodeling the fat. That is less visceral fat, more subcutaneous fat, and this will help him defend his core body temperature. But for you to get him down to probably in the 190s or where he really wants to be, more cold isn't going to do it.
Gotcha. Interesting. I'll definitely be happy to share that with him as well. I think from one point of view, it's hot here. He's a little bit of an overweight guy. It feels good to be in there that long.
I feel the same way. I'm an aquatic mammal, you know?
I couldn't agree with you more. What I've been doing with him is when we miss an ice bath, I demand he does 2 shorter ones that next day. I have found, I know for me, I sleep in the air conditioning, but I jump in the ice bath at nighttime at 9:30, 10 o'clock, just because I'm looking for HRVs above 80 as my average. And it seems to have, here's the other thing, it seems to have a positive effect. But we also, 2 nights a week, we play doubles paddle tennis 2 nights a week. If we play singles, I don't get the good HRV response, and neither does he, because it's really quite a calorie burn and a metabolic boost. It's hard to sleep well after. But if you play doubles, then it seems to be working really, really well as well.
I was going to ask you another question about him, but I lost my train of thought because you caught me this morning when I was reading this paper from 2022, The Effect of Extreme Cold on Complete Blood Count and Biochemical Indicators. This is from a Finnish team who's studying this world record holder cold exposure guy who's up in Rovaniemi. I've been to Rovaniemi. You know, it's like Santa Claus headquarters or something in northern Finland. Extremely cold. He spent 49 days on some outdoor expedition. And what do you suppose happened to his testosterone? All he's doing is walking around the Arctic Circle in the snow. Total T goes up 60%.
Can you imagine?
Right? Jeff, I thought that was the fastest ramp I'd ever seen. You know, less than 2 months, he's out there like 6.5 weeks, and he's going up 60%. And then you call me in the middle of me reviewing this paper and say, hey, Tom, I got a guy who almost tripled his total T levels in less than a month. It's
in a warm weather environment. No, exactly. And we didn't even take a testosterone booster. We took magnesium, a 3-blend magnesium. We take a vitamin B complex. We stopped taking vitamin D because he doesn't really need it, but I have him on TMG. I've got him on glycine, and creatine. Creatine was the other thing we added, 5 grams a day. And he told me he took the creatine. He had a board of directors meeting because he is retired from his company, but he still sits on the board, obviously, and holds the lion's share of the shares. And he's like, Jeff, I'm so much fucking smarter from adding some creatine. He's like, and I got all this recall I had when I was younger. One thing about me, Thomas, is recall is something I know everybody's name. I can meet them for 5 seconds and remember it a year later. I don't even have my testosterone as high as his, to be honest. I stay closer to 600 or 700 total. But that's all we did. But again, I made a document. I'm free to share it with you. So you can it's a simple document. I'll remove the client's name from it and I'll send it over to you. You can see what we did.
That's great.
It's not rocket science, to be honest.
Agreed. I'd say about 80% of the messages that I get are from guys saying, I tried your protocol of doing some exercise after the ice bath. I'm seeing tremendous gains.
Eloise Desoutter is a woman in her early 30s who got curious about the impacts of cold plunge therapy and sex hormone levels. She tracked her labs meticulously for 3 months, doing cold plunge several times a week. And she observed that her testosterone levels nearly doubled. Her estradiol went up as well. She feels fantastic, and she talks about it in the last installment of our triple header on cold plunge therapy and testosterone.
I am 32 and I don't have children yet. it's not something on my immediate horizon. And I'm thinking, well, how do I ensure that should I want to make that decision at some point in the near future, or, in the next 5 years' time, that I'm putting my body in the best state to be, the most fertile that I can be. And as we, I think, both have listened to a lot of Andrew Huberman, but done a little bit of external work from that as well. One of the things you can choose to optimize for is your metabolism. And if you're choosing to optimize for your metabolism, what are you doing in order to make that better? And so, I mean, to be honest, I'm otherwise fit, I'm healthy, and I was just interested to play around a little bit with it.
Then you did what most people don't bother with. You drew your blood and you got tested before you started this practice of ice baths. And then I think it was maybe 6 or 7 months, you said, okay, I'll get tested again. Tell me about the kinds of labs that you decided you needed or that you wanted when you're embarking on this new experiment on yourself.
So it was an even shorter time period. It was 4 months. And I did just one of those at-home finger prick test kits. It's a company here called Fourth, and I found it online. I actually used them way back in 2021. So I had some other biomarker results, which was an interesting reference point, but I'd never done these sort of the sex hormone biomarkers. I'd never done that. Occasionally they came up with estrogen, but testosterone isn't one that's included for women in like a standard pack. So I had to select for it. And so I decided, beginning of the year, following our conversation, I'll do my bloods. And it was really hard, Thomas, because we had just bought an ice bath, but it's not a Morozko. Unfortunately, it's just a little tub, a metal tub that we fill with hose water. But I can tell you, in London, it gets cold enough to dip into, particularly in January. So I was waiting for my kit to come, and my partner had already started dipping in the ice bath, and I was so jealous because I couldn't get in yet, because otherwise I would mess my results up. So I was really, really keen to have sort of a clean start. So I did my blood, sent them off, and it was critical for me to do it at the right part of my cycle. So I actually did it, or at least that the two measurements were taken at the same point. So I did 3 days, the third day of my cycle was the day that I did my bloods, and the same the second time around as well. And so I go 4 months. I'm doing our little cold plunges 2 to 3 times a week. I started daily, and if I'm completely honest, it was too much for me. I got a bit unwell, and I was like, you know what? I don't think I need to do this every day in order to receive the benefit. Whether that's I'm doing it for my head, my body, obviously the immediate mood boosting effects you get from it are the ones that are so easy to tell why you're doing this. But the things that are happening inside take a little bit longer to measure. So I did my second lot of results. So after the 2-3 times a week, these were varying temperatures of the ice bath. I would say anywhere between 2 and 8 degrees Celsius. And my total testosterone went from 0.6 nanomoles per liter to 1.1. So almost a 2x. Change, which is, I think, 17 to 31 nanograms per deciliter, just to do the translation. But what was interesting, my estrogen also went up 3x, which was surprising. I was only really looking at testosterone just as sort of this is a sort of interesting exercise. I'll play around with it a little bit. And my estrogen went up significantly. And I had no sort of, having done this, as I said before, I had no reference point of like, is this Is this a good thing? Is this a bad thing? My sister has polycystic ovaries. So all I've had in my head my whole life was, she's my stepsister, so we're not related, but she's had this. And so all I've really heard is, oh, high testosterone is bad. It's bad, it's bad, it's bad. But I'm, starting to come around to the, well, is it dependent on where your baseline started? Because if you're low, there are no established measures for women as to optimal testosterone levels. That's not established, at least not that
I agree.
I know of.
The lab reports, the units are so frustrating to try and translate. And the lab reports will only give you like, you're in the green range, whatever the green range means. And the range on some reports from the bottom of what they call normal to the top of what they call normal is so wide that it encompasses like 90% of the population, and they cut off these bell curves and they say, oh, well, you're normal. But Eloise, I don't want normal anymore because normal is sick. And so you go from 0.5 to 1.1 and your lab reporters say, oh, it's all green, you're fine. But that doesn't mean that you're where you want to be. Just because you can be compared to this other really broad range of population. Who says that 0.5 is where you should be for a 32-year-old woman who's thinking, well, maybe I'm ready to plan a family? When you compare yourself to your stepsister with PCOS, PCOS is cysts that develop around the ovaries. They can overstimulate the ovaries and produce too much testosterone. And so when you're thinking about her health, you get this idea, well, if it's too much testosterone, that's associated with PCOS. But it's backwards. That is, the PCOS is metabolic in its origins, and it causes the high testosterone levels. It's not an artifact of high testosterone. When your stepsister gets her metabolism right, the odds are that her testosterone will come down. So if she gets in the cold plunge and she's doing regular cold plunge therapy, she will recruit new brown fat. She will improve her insulin sensitivity. Her PCS may resolve. And surprisingly, her testosterone come down to a level that is healthy for her. And that might be a different level than yours. All of this is confusing because if you oversimplify the message and you say, oh, well, cold plunge therapy will raise testosterone levels in women, only if they're too low. It won't take a woman with PCOS and elevated testosterone that is associated with that and raise her up even further. The cold therapy will modulate the testosterone levels in women. And that means if you're too low, it will bring you up. If you're too high because of PCOS, it will bring you back down. The estrogen effects are something brand new. Pamela Butler also reported a big jump in her estradiol. And this kind of makes sense because testosterone and estrogen, they're related. You can't move one without moving the other. But the relationship between estrogen and brown fat, a new paper just landed in my inbox. And this was a study in mice, and these researchers in China, they said, well, we're going to administer exogenous estrogen to these mice, and we're going to see what happens to their thermogenic fat. So there's white fat, which is not thermogenic, brown fat, which is packed full of mitochondria, and that's responsible for non-shivering thermogenesis. But there's something in between called beige fat. And these are fat cells that perform some of the function of brown, even though structurally they have a lot of similar characteristics to white. They have extra mitochondria. So I'm calling them thermogenic fat. The administration of the estrogen to these mice activated their thermogenic fat and improved its function. And they said, wow, isn't this incredible? What they didn't say is that it can also work the other way, that this relationship between thermogenic fat and estrogen is a two-way street. You can either stimulate your thermogenic fat with estrogen, or you can stimulate it with cold and produce more estrogen. All of this is brand new. You can't go to medical school and take a course in this. You can't find the single, most erudite, learned researcher working on this because these puzzle pieces are just emerging in the science now. So I'm bringing a bunch of people together at ASU here in a couple of weeks to try and, well, you're working on cortisol and you're working on brown fat and you're working on the brain, and try and put all of these together into a more systemic approach to cold plunge research. If we can reach into all the different areas and say, look at how these things are related on a systemic level, we might come out of this with a much more comprehensive picture of what's going on and explain it to people like you and your sister in ways that it's easier to make sense.
Mm. God, it's fascinating, isn't it? What we think we know, but how much we just don't know about what's
I think
happening
so.
inside our bodies. It's completely wild to me. But I think the greatest um, confidence I take from things like this, which, if I'm honest, was just a trial of my own body, an experiment, if you will, on myself. Cohort study of one. But it's just how much agency you have over editing your own profiles, whatever that is. And I have to say that alongside what I was doing, I also did a body tracks analysis. So these are the ones that you have in the gym. I don't know how accurate they are, but it's the best representation that I had access to. So I did that, and I did it on the same day I did my bloods. So same day I did my bloods both times. And throughout the 4 months, I didn't change anything in respect to diet. That didn't change. And I didn't really change anything except I slightly shifted to more strength-based workouts. And that was because I am interested in increasing my muscle mass, because it is so protective for so many of the functions that we need on a daily basis, and then sort of in terms of health span and longevity as we age. So I was quite interested in making that shift and just seeing how my body responded. But I had so my total muscle mass increased 2%. My total fat mass reduced 2%. And my total bone mass, that actually didn't change much. I'm looking at my notes because I had to like sort of digest it all. But yeah, but the 2% up and 2% down, I found quite interesting, because I don't think I've ever in such a short period had such a leap. And therefore, I mean, the only thing I did change was really the ice baths, was the cold exposure. I was doing the strength-based stuff before, like I've been doing that for a couple of years now. So, and I didn't do it immediately afterwards, because I know when you and Ben spoke before, you were speaking about the rewarming protocol, and like you were doing, your Persian warrior with your steel mace, and Ben, when he does his, he rewarms afterwards with a small amount of exercise, say, like 4 to 6 minutes, or depending on how long he's done and how cold it was, but he will rewarm. And I was trying to do it without rewarming, so letting my body rewarm itself. Which I tell you, Thomas, in February in London, sometimes I didn't get warm again. I was just sitting there shivering, but I was thinking about you, thinking, this is good. This is good. I'm activating my brown fat. So yeah, it was also interesting seeing the body tracks analysis as well.
So you were pleased with those results then? The fat going down and the muscle mass going up sounds like what you were going for.
Absolutely.